welcome to the Tuesday, October 26th, 2021, Blue Lake City Council meeting. We are meeting in person today. There is a Zoom link for those who would like to join in. So we'll start with number one, Pledge of Allegiance. We'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll start with establishing a quorum of council.
Yes. Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Doherty, Councilmember Hogan, Councilmember Curran, Councilmember McCree.
Chris Karen to the agenda. Item number 14 is there any discussion from public council for the roll call vote?
Yes. Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Hogan,
Yes.
Councilmember Curran,
Yes.
Councilmember McCree.
Yes.
Public comment. The public is in announcements. That is not on the agenda. Item 15 for this topic. Presentation. The council may uniform. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda as time the council takes up each specific item. Any public comments this evening? Okay. Then we will move on. All right, we are now on item 5. Public City of Blue Lake unmet transit need. For years, the City of Blue Lake and the public hearing against input regarding unmet the City of Blue Lake is making schedules, transit routes, etc. If we are through the public hearing process, will be incorporated into county's larger transportation. Also direct funding for running and something that I do as a member of the County Association member. Is there any input from staff?
I believe we have a representative from HCOG is here. Yeah. You might want to say something.
Good evening, Council. This is Stephen Luther, the Associate Regional Planner with HCOG. And as you stated, Mayor Jones, this is the annual unmet transit needs process to hear if there are any public transit needs that are not currently being met. And then we analyze those and make a determination of any unmet transit needs that are or are not reasonable to meet. And then that allows a certain amount of funding through the Transportation Development Act to be released and go to cities. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the council or the public has. Thank you.
Usually matched by the ranch having a bus service for us. So that I assume is going to.
Yes, so the city pays for almost $35,000 a year to support that bus service as well. So yeah, so every year we allocate resources for that, and that was allocated in the 21-22 budget.
Comment or question or concern from our public? No hands or indications. Go ahead and close the public hearing. At this time, we have no other action, but you can shut down the public hearing. And thank you. On item 6. River Alliance. Power Street Rescue.
Right.
Mandy,
Yes.
I'm totally unable to hear Adeline. It's really garbled, and I tried dialing on the phone to see if the audio was better, and I'm not able to dial on the phone either. So I don't know if it can be made clear or if it's just me or not, but I thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Lynn. Is it any better now?
No,
Is the audio coming through your computer? Is that why?
I'm not sure.
is there a
Is
dial?
anyone, maybe someone else could jump in and tell us how their audio is. I don't really have a way to.
Mandy, I can hear you really clearly, and I was experiencing the same audio issues.
Okay.
So
Let's,
just a moment to work out some speakers.
Is it possible to put the phone option on?
I just left my phone.
You can do that too.
because I can't remember what that one is.
That's the second one.
Oh, the X, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, what about now? No, no difference? Is there any improvement at all?
Yes. You sound much better, Adeline.
Okay. Oh, okay, put it back to your dial listen. Wait, how about now?
Who's talking? That's really bad.
Your other participants.
Uh,
Right here. No, that's the mic.
Change it to display audio. No, that one.
Yeah.
That should be the TV.
Okay, what about now? Is there any improvement?
Who's talking?
That's Elaine talking. Is there any? Yeah.
I can hear Elaine.
Okay. Can you hear me, Adeline?
Yes,
Okay,
that's better.
okay, thank you. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right, we are on agenda item number 6. Representatives from River Alliance will provide the council and the community, including an update on the status of the project, design elements, and project timeline.
So I don't see anyone on. They had confirmed that they were going to be presenting tonight, Dawn, Allen, and Keith Barnhart. I don't see either one.
Wonder if
Well,
they're-
what if we move along and if they show up, we'll grab it again?
Yeah, I was thinking that. All right, it's, it seems we're having some trouble with connecting with our presenter. Okay, all right, well. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for Keith and his cohort. Let's see, we are on item 7 then, City of Blue Lake Water Service Deposit Policy Discussion and Direction.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this to council's attention. Staff would like to do a little bit of research on options to address our current water policy. It's really our deposit policy. And what the issue that we have is that there's not a mechanism for refunding deposits unless you cancel your service. So we have a pretty large deposit fund of over $70,000. It's a non-interest bearing fund. And we have people in there who've been in there for over 40 plus years. And we don't have a mechanism to refund it. So most cities will refund your deposit based upon consistency to pay. And we'd like to consider that because it's a pretty large sum to have sitting on our books. And there's, for long-term residents, people who don't ever plan on leaving, there's no way to get them their money back. And it becomes a little bit of an issue. A lot of people, if they're in a rental, they'll switch out and then we apply their deposit against their remaining balance and it works really well. But it looks like one of the options we would have is to base it on a year's, basically on a good pay basis. If you go for a year, you paid your bill, you're up to date, we could refund your deposit. So we just have a really large balance for the city. We don't have a mechanism to clean that up, and we'd like to look at options. So I wanted to just present it tonight so the council knows, and my recommendation is that you direct staff to do a little bit of research and bring back some options for discussion in the future.
Is there an option to put that money into an interest bearing for the money that does roll through? Or is it legal?
I'm not sure about the legalities of it, because essentially you would be having the capacity to almost manipulate the fund or your policy in order to gain interest. So I believe that that's not allowed. And that's probably why it was set up that way initially anyways for those deposits.
I've heard some people mention this to me that have lived in Blue Lake for a long time, so I'm glad to see it's come up. I think one of the problems I'm having with it is that when
No,
I paid
my question then would be, have you?
1977,
Or is this a recent development?
small, I don't even remember what it is. Now it's up to.
It's like $160. And
Yeah.
we have people who have $15 on the books because they've had their house for 45 plus years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And these are just some cleanup items as we're going through old policies and we're trying to update things and clean things up and consolidate and get updated. These are some of the things that are, they're pretty low hanging fruit. They're easy ones to clean up, but
So you have a mechanism for going into the past, seeing when people paid their.
it's all
70
accounted
cents.
for in our water system. So it's a really easy process for us to extrapolate that data out. So it's really more just a mechanism of the policy itself. Doesn't allow for any opportunities to refund that.
Right, so
And-
you'll have to change the
We have
policy.
to change the
manual.
policy, yeah.
You'll have to change the manual. Okay. Any other questions or comments about this item? You're looking at a year of good receipts?
It seems, what I would like to do is get some information from other systems. What we're seeing mostly is that it's like a year, if you paid your bill on time for a year, and it's kind of an incentive mechanism. I mean, very rarely does anyone ask about it, but I think most people that are here long-term have just forgotten about it. I'm sure my parents have one on the books from 60 years,
Yeah.
70 years ago. I don't know. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't even remember anymore, but we do, it is getting more expensive now. And, you know, water is expensive. And so $160 or so could really benefit a family at some point.
That might be a monthly bill.
It absolutely, yeah. Or 2 months, it's actually equates to 2 months of water service.
All right.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, is there any questions or comments from the public on this item? And seeing none, we're going to move on then to item 8, discussion regarding acquisition strategies for assessor parcel 025-161-010, 501 Hatchery Road, and there'll be a discussion and direction to staff. So the city manager has been in contact with representatives from Calgon Carbon regarding acquisition option for the APN number. And Calgon is interested in working with the city of Blue Lake and a development company to transition property pricing structures and site remediation and removal considerations. The city manager, in conversation with the city's attorney, is seeking council's input and direction on additional terms. So just to make it clear here, we do not own the Calgon Carbon Company property. That was acquired by the, it wasn't called Calgon years ago. It was Peachtree business, I think. But anyway, we do not own that. We do, however, have regulations about the zoning of that property. So we do still have a lot of power in terms of what can happen there. Having said that, would you like to continue with this item, Manager Hager?
Yeah, so I recently spoke with representatives. John Schmidt is the representative from Calgon Carbon. They just so we got a little bit better feel for their organizational structure. They were bought out by a Japanese firm who also specializes in carbon. And this is one of the kind of last remaining assets that they have that hasn't been shifted over to their new parent company. It's kind of a bit of an outlier. And their goal has been to sell it. It's been on the market now for going on 3 years. And they've had some interest. At one point, they've worked with Danco Communities twice on an acquisition and took it right up to a purchase, but then failed to execute the final purchase terms. It's been advertised for quite a while. It's had some nice marketing. I've sent it out to everyone and their brother that I could think of that might be interested in developing. At one point, the Weot Tribe was interested also. I've talked with Del Arce about it. I've talked with Pacific Builders. I've basically sent out, I've created kind of my own marketing sheet for it and did like a mass mailing to anyone who was kind of a commercial developer in our region and a little bit further out. The only ones who have really expressed a larger interest in it is Danco, because they are the ones kind of leading the charge in affordable housing. They really like the property, but Calgon was reticent about selling because of the housing side of the proposal. So the
So last time we had talked about further investigations on the soils and look at our own liability and moving forward on it.
yeah, so so in talking with John, you know, to see what they would, we basically had, he said, you know, kind of let's have further discussion basically. So in talking with John, you know, they do have some debt on the property. They did have Freshwater Sciences did come out and do some investigations. They're going to make that report available to all of us. SHM has looked at it from kind of a historical use perspective. It's very similar to what the city's current properties are. We have the reports from the, the B&B properties. We've had soil studies done on city properties that were also part of the Macintosh Mill site. So we're pretty familiar with the issues associated. And basically where we're at right now is Calgon is comfortable selling the property for development with the city being a partner in the project. They don't necessarily want to mandate that the city be the owner, but they want us to be a partner in some respect to assume any liability for contamination. So we're basically at that point where they said, you know what, we like the idea, we're willing to sell, let's come up with some terms and conditions. My concern was not acquiring something that had the building on it because the cleanup associated can trigger a lot of things. It can trigger prevailing wage. It can trigger a lot more compliance issues. So it'd be easier for them to clean it up themselves and transition over a clean site. And they agreed also. They would like that done anyways because their concern is that the city or a developer would come and sell it on the backside to someone who wanted to do a carbon company that would be in competition. So it's in their best interest also to take out that capacity to operate. Just prices that they're proposing is
reduced if we're taking liability.
yeah, so it's drastically reduced.
Okay.
I don't want to mention, I don't know that it's appropriate to mention numbers at this point, but it's drastically reduced.
Okay.
So it would
I
be,
think that discussion has to happen in a closed session.
yeah. And I talked with Russ about property acquisition and negotiations. He said we're still not at that level yet, so this still has to happen in open session, which is fine. I just don't want to name any pricing at this point. So basically, they've asked us to draft a term sheet, and I wanted to bring it to council's attention to see if you had any concerns or ideas or things that you would want us to address on a term sheet. I mean, it'll be pretty straightforward, but I think the biggest thing is, I think taking the buildings down and having a clean site is really important, and that was something that I would strongly recommend. I think the rest of it is pretty minor, and even if it was contaminated, like I told Calgon, an option for them is to sit on the property for the next 20 years and just pay the taxes and never have anything happen. And they're like, it doesn't really cost us that much. We'll pay a little maintenance here and there, and we'll just pay the property taxes are pretty low and never have to worry about it. But they said, what if it is contaminated? And what if something is happening? And you sit on that. I said, I would rather see the city acquire that and clean it up and deal with the situation than have someone sit on it, for the next 20 years and potentially have something leaching into the groundwater. I mean, we're right on the river. We have, stormwater systems through there. It's habitat. So it really is in the city's best interest to figure out a way to move forward. So.
It's a beautiful piece of property. I mean, right there on the corner, right near the river.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in a floodplain? Okay. Are there any questions or comments from council? It's a big move in many ways. I mean, it's been sitting there for a long time, and we've all been kind of wondering what's going to happen with it. Now that we have the opportunity zone, we have something that can open up to make it viable for the mixed use that we're really looking at. And we have people that would love to
Talk about doing some outreach to HSU to see if there's an opportunity to maybe partner under the Polytech situation, which is really interesting. And so I've sent out some emails trying to find out who the proper person is. We did talk with Yanko about that. They were interested in that. There has been some recent movement with the state about teacher housing and doing some stuff more for students, which could be really interesting. And so those are all options that are on the table too, to try and look at what would be the best use of that site.
Great. Okay. All right. I'm going to open it up to public. Is there any public input concerning this item? We're on item number 8. See anybody calling in? Right. Okay, back to council. What is the direction of the council on this item?
I think it's a good idea to keep up with the discussions and like you said, kind of come up with the pricing and some conditions that go along with it. For buildings and what's affordable, like, so, I mean, it's gonna, like, the conversations are gonna develop.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys were kind of apprised of, because it is kind of taking to the next step. The term sheet is kind of laying out something that's a little more concrete. And so if you had any other considerations or things that you're concerned about or ideas, we're happy to address those. I mean, ultimately, I'll be working, talking with Russ about legalities, liability assumptions, and then, a term sheet would be proposed and, obviously council will be part of, moving that forward, but just preliminarily. And it sounds like they could move fairly quickly. They would like to get this done, so it's
I
there's
want
an
to see the
option.
reports from the.
Yeah, I think
Some
once we
people
get a
are
little
like,
bit further into it, then they'll be able to release the reports. I know that Chris has talked with Freshwater Sciences because they use them a lot also. And they're doing some, even the project in Arcata, the sorrel place, that had remediation work that was required. And it was all funded as part of the state funding. So it's pretty standard these days because what we're finding is a lot of industrial sites make really good housing sites as well. The infrastructure's in, the access is in, and a lot of the cleanup, can be fairly minor, when you're looking at maybe like an old logging site or something. So there might be some hydrocarbons, there's ways to cap that, there's ways to clean soil. So it's something that the state is really not backing away from anymore because they're recognizing that these are areas that can be developed.
So we like the concept and we'd like to move forward on this. It's very exciting and perhaps a negotiating committee again of 2 council persons might be another option for working further down the line on it. And of course, the attorney being involved to make sure that it's all legal. But I think traditionally, historically, that is a pretty clean site. Macintosh lumber mill was not one of the mills that used like a lot of things, pesticides or anything like that. Yeah, they didn't have that, and they didn't have a gas, or they didn't have a gas station on site or anything like that.
There was a tiki burner that was located on the B&B property. It was around, and so we you guys hear us okay? Give us a thumbs up.
You totally cut out.
We did, we lost internet for a moment. Sorry about that.
And now you're frozen.
All right. Yeah.
And now you're garbled.
But can you hear us? No, I guess not.
Oh. Are we back?
Kind of.
Mandy, did
Our
we-
internet is unstable.
Mandy, did it revert back to the built-in audio?
Well, we have unstable internet.
Yeah,
again for
but-
some reason, but-
Go good there.
We're having some unstable internet issues. We apologize for that.
We usually have good internet
I
in
know.
this area. And I'm kind of wondering, because April, their internet was down.
Down.
Bill, so I wonder if there's something going on.
Oh. Okay. we could do that.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So if you are, kind of final, but I like to just take the next, time up until the next meeting to kind of flesh out more details and recommendations, if that's okay.
Yeah, I am curious, are we only interested in moving forward, if we're considering housing on the site, and are we only interested in acquiring the property? If we partner with a developer with housing in mind, or would the city be looking at any other totally non-housing uses of the property? And if so, is that feasible for us to do?
So my only concern is that the city doesn't have the cash to acquire the property on its own. And so that's the only, that's the reason why we've reached out to other developers, and it wasn't strictly based upon housing. But the only ones who have come forward are the ones who can, utilize the housing dollars to make a project happen. So I didn't get any additional interest from any of the other larger commercial developers. In the past, I know there were people interested in the property for cannabis extraction, and that's not allowed within our zoning. And that's basically been the limitation on who's been interested. So if someone were to come forward, definitely, I think all options are on the table, but so far this is all we've got. And the city just doesn't have the cash resources to acquire it on their own at this point, so. So I think that what I would anticipate the composition would be is that the city would be a partner, which I think puts us in a good position to help make sure that it's the type of development we would like to see, but wouldn't be the ownership interest.
Unless someone proposes that differently, I'm not sure.
Okay, you'll have to speak towards the phone. Okay, we are still working with our glitches. I'm hoping it's a little bit better now. If it is, let us know. If not, let us know.
That helped.
So is there any?
Whatever
What was that?
whatever Summer did seemed to help.
Okay, we're now on a phone as far as speakers, so hopefully that helps. All right, that's exciting. Luckily, we have some young tech people on the council. I'm not one of them. All right, thank you, Summer. Is there any further direction to staff on item 8? I think you have a pretty clear path. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We're moving on then to resolution number 1191, a resolution of the City Council declaring certain city-owned properties as surplus land in accordance with the requirements set forth in the Surplus Lands Act.
Can you
Action.
maybe not go through this whole thing? Let's do some clarification first.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, so one quick clarification on this. After speaking to the city attorney this evening, this was prepared by a separate attorney that is contracted with us to help us with this project specifically. However, this is not representing what's actually happening. So we need to be really clear that this resolution actually needs to be reworded.
We're just going to add lease. We're proposing to add lease as an option.
Okay, well, I totally disagree with that, but let's go forward with, so there's not at any point that the council has said we want to sell that property.
Right.
And so the purpose of the Surplus Lands Act, which was established reestablished in November 2020, is that anytime you're going to sell or lease a piece of property for more than 5 years, it requires that you go through this process. It doesn't, so the wording in this resolution does not represent what we're doing, which is, so I'm saying, it's saying that we're going to sell the property and that we're going to, property sale. But this is not representing what's actually happening. And, but with proper wording, we have to disclose that this is surplus land based on this act because we intend to potentially lease the land based on some of the discussions with Danco. That was one of, and that was done in public meetings. We talked about different options of how to utilize the land for development moving forward. And one of them was potentially leasing it but not ever selling it. So the Surplus Lands Act process is, if you're going to lease a piece of property, city-owned property for more than 5 years, you have to go through this process. If you're going to sell it, you have to go through this process. But my dispute with this resolution is it specifically says, whereas the city finds that the mission of the city and implementation of the city general plan would be to further advance the sale of the property, which is not correct. And now, and then Section 2A, the property is no longer necessary for the city's use and is surplus land. I disagree with that also. And then Section 2B is the sale of the property would further the implementation of the city's general plan and would advance the city mission. Still disagree. Section 3, that we now send a written notices of availability of the property for sale. Again, not correct. So I just, this needs to be redone. This is, I couldn't, yeah, this is not representing what we're doing.
Okay, so I think it allows you options though, because this is something you'll have to do on a yearly basis. So basically, my understanding of the process now with the state is really taking a hard edge on it. Basically, if you're not using the land, it's surplus, and you have to make it available if you want to do anything. So if we wanted to do the bike park, we have to first surplus it and make this available. So it's a very, I feel like it's a very heavy-handed approach by the state that is basically mandating that you, before you look at any other development option, you look at selling or leasing your land for housing. It could be that the council gets a really good proposal for a portion of the property and for sale. And you look at it and say, you know what, this could be in the best interest of the city to sell this portion or that portion. It gives you the option to look at it. It also, if we add the leasing option, it also gives you the option to look at lease options. So I think limiting, I'm not recommending the sale by any means, but there could be an instance where you would want to consider selling. The city has sold property in the past out there. We sold the Paradise Cay properties, we sold the B&B properties. There could be a situation where you could be interested in selling a portion of property. That's not what you're doing, what you're considering with Danco, but this is separate from Danco. This is saying that all the property is being considered at this point. So it's a very, you kind of have to take it as two separate entities. One, we have to set aside the process with Danco right now because we didn't go through the, we're going through this process now to say, hey, everybody, the city of Blue Lake has some land that we're not using right now. And in order for us to look at development, we need to first make it available for anyone who may be interested in proposing a housing project. It doesn't mean you have to do the project or, but you have to give them an option to send you a proposal. So it's going to become a process for us to be able to do this.
But I understand
that. It does make a little queasiness about it.
So it's a non-binding, and so I totally understand the act, and that it's non-binding when we do this. I'm just saying that this resolution is not worded appropriately. It sends the wrong message to everybody in our community. And to me, when I read it, I was like, oh no,
absolutely. Well,
this is not what we're doing.
And I agree because I think the term surplus is not the appropriate term
Because
anyway.
I look at this property we do use. We've used it for the mountain biking groups come and camp at it. We use it on a daily basis for dogs. We use it for bike. We use it for all sorts of things right now. So it's not really surplus, but I understand. We
But
do
that's-
have to go through this process in order
The
to,
state's not going to take that
yeah,
argument.
no,
Is
no, I know.
basically what it comes
So
down
in
to.
order to move forward with anything with Danco or anybody else in
Yeah.
any aspect, even the bike park,
Mhm.
we do have to go through this process.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the resolution is not worded appropriately.
So it would, if you as a council could discuss how to change and make those modifications so that you could still consider the resolution. Because this process has to go through a timeline of notifications and, interests and all of this. So trying to keep it on track would be really helpful. And I think you could modify it amongst yourselves to make it. But like I said, it is an uncomfortable terminology and it's an uncomfortable position, but it's almost non-negotiable. The state's not going to say, you can't say, well, people go and throw frisbees on it and recreate
I
on
get
it.
that. That's
therefore-
not the argument here.
No, but I'm
So,
just saying,
yeah,
so they
totally understand.
still use that surplus
Yep.
terminology.
So the point though is we need to word it in a we can still abide by it, but we need to word it in a manner that reflects what's actually going to happen. But as far as timeline, Mandy's correct. There's a notification process that has to be gone through. And what would happen after that is people, like developers and everything else could come back and say, hey, we're interested in this and this is what we propose.
Right.
But it's non-binding by the city. Like,
Yes,
we are not
absolutely.
binding ourselves to sell this, to lease
No.
it, to do anything. We just have to publicly notice it.
Mhm.
But I just think that the way that it's worded is saying, hey, we're gonna sell it, tell us what you want.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
no, that's not accurate.
Yeah, and reading the Surplus Lands Act, it's heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It's very, very heavy-handed, and it takes a lot of local control away. And it's getting more and more restrictive each time. This was just amended in April, and because we thought, well, maybe we could exempt this, because we are looking at housing, and we have, and we couldn't meet a single one of the findings for the exemption either. We looked up one side and down the other to see if we could figure this out, and it's just not, this is the way it is. And there's cities that are wrestling with this. There's cities that are trying to build stadiums for their cities for economic development, and they're running up against the new regulations that just came out in April, and they're going, wait a minute, we've been negotiating with stadiums to build, for professional sports teams, and all of a sudden they're having to put the brakes on and consider it for affordable housing. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, honestly.
Excuse me,
So what I see
can I interrupt one time? Barbara Lane is trying to.
we're not ready for public input right now, Lynn.
I
We'll
know.
let you know. Okay, so I see this as a hoop that we have to jump through, and it's not a comfortable one for me either. I see though that everywhere that we sell, we say the word the sale, we should put in or lease. What I'm concerned about is future council going back and looking at this and saying, oh, they said sale. That's what I'm always looking ahead to, what a future council will say. What did that council want us to do with this land? So what I'm proposing is that wherever we say the sale, like in the title, it should say or lease of surplus land. In the third whereas, the property is currently not listed for sale or lease. Again, section 2, item B, the sale or lease of the property. Section 3.
Why don't we,
B.
let's run down each one specifically from the top, because that you're missing some.
Oh, I'm missing some.
yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, I see. Yeah. The fourth whereas with the sale or lease of the property. I mean,
But that would be further advanced with the sale or lease. I think that just that would be further advanced is not correct. We should just take that out.
an implementation of the city general plan would be further advanced with the sale.
Well, it is what the zoning
Would be further.
is trying to get to.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Or
I'm just
housing
really,
element would be-
really uncomfortable with all of this.
Okay. If I've missed any, I will go back and put those in. Section 1, no, section 2.
So section 2A, is that language required? Because that just seems to be really inappropriate to say. That the
Yeah,
property is no longer necessary for the city's use and is surplus land?
you know,
No, I think that's.
I
really
am not
off
sure. I believe that language comes about because we cannot make the appropriate finding under the Surplus Lands Act that
Okay.
it is,
It's exempt.
Is that it's
We can't do that.
and
Okay.
so that was the kicker is, and I argued all kinds of ways, and he's like,
Okay.
you'll
Can we
never-
say that? We couldn't make the appropriate finding under the,
More of a, we could not find it to not be surplus.
yeah.
I think it's just the idea of surplus seems like it's just unwanted or unusable or not important.
It's an unfortunate
It's a-
term.
it's a
Let's,
very-
so what about modifying then the second or third whereas to where instead of the property is currently not listed for, or wait, let's see, not used. Where's the one that talks about it not being used? Okay. Well, so section 2, the property is no longer necessary for the use. We can say, while the property is being utilized by the city and its residents, it is designated as surplus land. Or is that also part of the code or language that has to be used?
You know, so, what you could do is propose it. So this is what Russ told me.
Okay.
You could propose it and you could propose the language, and if it doesn't meet the legality of the Surplus Lands Act, the attorney could make the adjustment. And if it does meet it, you could keep your language. So he
Got it.
said if you want to propose something, you could propose it in a manner that allows it to be modified by the attorney to meet the legalities of the act. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
So you could put something like the property is being used by the city, but according to the state, it's considered surplus land.
I could see,
Yeah.
they could put something in there so that it doesn't lose its usefulness to the city, but it doesn't
Right.
meet the exempt standard.
Right. so
Yeah.
It's being utilized, however, it does not meet the exempt standards. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that could be reworded that way.
And
Okay.
is
Therefore surplus land.
Yeah.
Under this act, surplus land act.
That'd be a good way to do that language instead.
Okay, then B, I have the sale or lease of the property would further the implementation of the city's general plan and would advance the mission of the city.
Can we say may advance the mission of the city? Yeah, rather than would?
May further the,
Potential sale and or lease.
Yeah.
Well, may is that potential
Okay.
word, but yeah, that's right.
Well, the potential sale may
Right.
advance.
The
May
sale
and
or
even
lease of
both.
the property may
right,
further.
may, yeah.
And that's good.
Same with the last whereas statement, may be further advanced with the sale or lease.
Oh, instead of would be, yeah. may.
Yeah, because who's to say that? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, we just jumped around. Okay, so.
Yeah, so we jump to the fourth whereas.
the same grammatical change though, the
Second
may.
line.
Instead of would, we put in may. I mean, this will be run by the city attorney and he'll have to say, yes, you can,
Yeah.
or
And I think
no,
he
you can't.
He understands too that this is some uncomfortable language too.
Well, it's just boilerplate,
Yeah.
and what we're doing is we're trying to make it fit our town a little bit
Right.
better, but we may not be allowed to. We don't know, we're just trying this out now. All right, under B, the sale or lease of the property would further, okay, so we
May
have
further.
may, yeah, may further advance the place city's general plan and may advance, all right. The city council therefore finds and declares the property may be surplus land, is designated by the state as surplus land,
Yeah, we-
Surplus land under the.
as
surplus
defined,
land,
well,
yeah,
that's what
the
it's
code.
defined in the code, and with correct findings in this resolution incorporated here and by this reference. Section 3, the city council hereby authorizes the city manager to send written notice of availability of property for sale or lease.
And then the next, I would say to negotiate the terms of a proposed sale of the property, I would scratch that off. That's not, it wouldn't be up to the city manager to negotiate that.
Because the next section talks about how council would have to approve it, but yeah, we would want that.
So we're
to be
scratching that
done.
out to negotiate.
So
Okay.
after reading the summary at the top seems really succinctly accurate if we change like the potential sale or lease of surplus land in the last line. And if the rest of it were to follow the top, whatever that 2 or 3 sentences, but with the change of the potential sale or lease of surplus land, then the rest of it would follow naturally. And wouldn't require, dissecting the whole thing.
Well, with resolutions,
Yeah.
you want to be, you want to put what you want in there.
Just be, yeah, really, really clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like yours right at the top there, right in the
What did you have?
declaration, yeah.
In the title.
What did you
to
put?
write?
Sale or lease, put
Yeah.
up there.
Oh, yeah, we
So it
have
has-
sale or lease,
Up
yeah.
at the top as well.
But then we have to be consistent in
Yeah.
the whole
Sure, I
thing.
mean, we have to catch them all, but at the end of it, it should, meet that top, because the top
Right.
is very, we are following the Surplus Lands Act with these 3 APNs.
Yeah, but
And
then
we'll
what
require-
happens is in a resolution, everything underneath then spells out how to do it. So you
Sure,
have
yeah.
to be really clear on that.
So there was
So
another,
finicky
at
and
the
weird.
very last there, as amended on January 1st, 2020, as applicable to a proposed sale or lease of the property.
Okay. So in this section 3, then let's go back and, so if we're scratching off to negotiate the terms of a proposed sale of the property, says to any beneficial interested person or entity, and to otherwise, that's wrong, follow the procedures. So I would say
Hmm.
not to any beneficial interested entity.
That second "and" needs to be out of there.
Well, you take out to any beneficial interested person or entity, and then go and to otherwise follow the procedures of the surplus land. So I'm saying take out the negotiation to any beneficial party. Scratch those 2.
Well,
But
that's
we're
part
gonna
of it,
send
right?
written notice of availability
Yeah,
of the property to a
Yeah.
beneficially interested person or entity.
there, okay, yeah,
So
sorry.
we just take out the negotiate the terms.
Right,
Yeah.
But
And
that
then
might be part of the law, but if it is,
yeah,
it
it
would
might
need
be.
to come to council. Like if we got any offers, we would want them to come to us, right?
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
just-
I mean, we could put in something, what we've done usually is we've had a negotiating team, which is 2 members of the city council. But I don't know if we need to put that into the resolution
No,
or
and I
not.
think I'll ask Russ if, it may be that I will receive the initial responses, offers, and then I could see if we can build in language that would be then brought to council for consideration, because I think it spells out in the act how you have to receive
Right.
the proposals and how you have to negotiate in good faith, and you have to consider them. You don't have to do the project, but you have to negotiate in good faith. So that might be just, and I'll see if he could reword that so that it's not just, it doesn't look like I'm the only one doing it.
Right, and if
So
they
I
have,
could receive the proposals and then.
yeah, you receive it, but then if you need to have something in there wording about a negotiating team or something like that, because that's what we've usually done. A negotiating team of the council, but.
All right, so section 4 then, whenever you're ready, Mary.
Okay. So on section
Mandy's
4.
already, hold on.
Oh, okay.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Any proposed agreement for the sale or lease of the property shall be subject to the approval of the city council. So again, adding or lease. Section 5, the sale or lease of the property as surplus is exempt from environmental review under the California Environment Quality Act, CEQA. Pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15312, surplus government property sales. However, if development was proposed on the property by a subsequent buyer
Or lease.
or a lessee,
Yeah.
a lessee, L-E-S-E-E, then that development would be reviewed under CEQA.
And then section 6, we're not a board of directors, yeah. I think this attorney needs to do a little bit better reviewing their documents where they send it.
By the Blue Lake City Council.
And not the board clerk, but the city clerk. City clerk.
And the city clerk, of which we have an acting one, right? That's you then.
Yeah, I'm designated, so you
Yeah.
have to say city clerk.
Yeah. Attest to and certify the vote, the documents that passed, and everything else is the same. But I don't think we can pass this tonight unless you find that it needs to be passed, and we can pass it with those changes. But unless the attorney says yay or nay on these.
Yeah, I think it needs to go.
We're
back
not
to the-
sure.
Mhm.
How's our timeline on this?
I mean, if we could possibly have a special meeting, quickly to adopt it, that would be good. I would hate to wait another, month
I know.
to do this. So I could have this done tomorrow, and if there was even a possibility of like a quick meeting on Friday, maybe to do this. But I think, we knew that the lease language needed to be added in, and Russ said that that was fine. And then he did, like I said, he did have kind of that catch-all that you could propose these changes. And with the language that in the event that any of these terms don't meet the requirements of the Surplus Lands Act, they could be adjusted by the attorney to, some of it's just, like I said, some of it is just what the state is saying you have to do, and there's no way around it. But I think what you've come up with is very, I think it's easy to make those changes and modifications.
It'd be great to see the changes come back again before.
And what you could do is you could pass it with these changes, and then if it doesn't meet the terms, we'll bring it back and modify it. But if it's fine, I mean, because I think your changes are fine, I think then you can change it at another date, but you could probably get it done tonight. So if you're.
Well, it's just whether there are substantial changes or not, and whether the attorney feels they are, but it's up to the council what to do about it. I'm conflicted.
I'd like to hear public comment first before we
Yeah.
do anything else. But yeah.
Good idea. Okay. All right. Well, is there any other further comment or question or concern from council? That's pretty good. All right, we're going to open this up for discussion of public. Is there any public comment on this item? Lynn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. And I like the changes that the council is making. And I like the conclusion by somebody that they'd like to see it again to make sure that the attorney understood the council's intent before it's passed. Those would be my comments.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments concerning this? Lisa Hoover?
Yes, hello, thank you. Yeah, this is, I'm glad, I don't know who it was who brought up, because when I first read about this, I really felt like some trust had been broken about this because of the language in it. And it giving the ramifications of what's going on here, rushing this forward doesn't seem to be, I feel like it's being rushed. And the idea of when you're talking about leasing land versus selling, you're throwing it all in there and it sounds like it's so easy, but I think the ramifications of this do warrant stepping back a little bit and making, I mean, y'all were reading things that we as a member of the public haven't seen. And I heard this thing about CEQA regulations weren't going to be needed. And of course I have concerns about that too. So there was a lot that y'all just read, section 1, 2, 3, 4, and all that we as members of the public, I'm not sure. So I think it has some ramifications that warrant a little bit of stepping back a little bit on this for the surplus land. And I wouldn't rush it because again, I think it has to do with a lot of trust and what is the future for that land. And I don't want the bathwater, baby in the bathwater being thrown in there. Because selling is very, very different from leasing. And as a member of the public, a citizen of Blue Lake, I would like to know a little bit more about the language that's going into this agreement or this, whatever you call it, the exclusive negotiating agreement. I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, so I would like for y'all to sort of pause a little bit and not rush this through because I think the terminology is legally binding and it's very, very important. I guess that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Lisa.
So this is actually a resolution, not a negotiating agreement. And the language about CEQA specifically said that to sell or lease doesn't require CEQA. However, if development was proposed on the property by a subsequent buyer or leasee, then the development would be reviewed under CEQA. So that CEQA isn't being like disregarded.
Okay,
Still
thank
is
you.
required. And then just so this packet and all of this information is actually available on the city website, so you can review it. And I agree, I was shocked by the language in this resolution, but this is an act that we have talked about in previous council meetings, knowing that it was coming this way. And so this isn't necessarily a rush. I don't feel like it's a rush, but because we have talked about it in the past and we're aware of it, but we're now seeing the resolution and the language, because Mandy had to do a lot of background work with the attorney to prepare this. And it's shocking, but that's why we're talking through it.
With the word surplus, I don't think was a part of some of the previous things. And I missed about a month of, because I wasn't in the area, but I missed about a month of things. But the word surplus is I believe is new.
No, it's not new. It's actually it's the Lands Surplus Act, or Surplus Lands Act, and that was specifically discussed in previous meetings. So it is a weird word to use, though. I find it really awkward and not appropriate, but yeah.
But if you're going to add selling to the property, are y'all thinking about selling things? I mean, if you're putting it in there, I understand that if you wanted to sell something, you would have to go through this again. Why not do this another time if the option, and you have more public involvement if you're selling property? Adding the idea of selling versus leasing, those are very different things. And again,
Lisa, you may have jumped in on this late, but this isn't, we've not discussed selling this property. We've actually explicitly said we don't want to sell this property in this meeting and previous meetings. And the language that we're adding here is leasing, not sale. So this is like required language that has to be in here to meet this act. And it says to sale, and we're saying, but we also may want to lease. But we've also explicitly said we don't want to sell the property. This is one of those, like Adeline just said, it's like jumping through these hoops. But there's this process that's laid out that it notifies the public that here, this is under the Surplus Lands Act. We have to designate this land as surplus. And then interested parties can provide, letters of interest or bids or solicitation or something to the city manager, who then it's reviewed through the legal counsel and brought back to the city, which we have no binding obligation to accept any offers that are presented at all. We can say no to every single one.
Why are you including selling? I mean, I understand the lease. Why then the word sell in this agreement?
It's part of the required act language.
I did the required, you have to have sell, you can't just have lease. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. That's what we're saying.
Right, that's why we're putting in the or lease. We are actually changing it, but we're feeling that our attorney will say that that's all right and we can move forward with it. But
well, if they just put sale in, why couldn't you just put lease in?
But that's not the point of the act, Lisa. And so I think we've kind of already gone all through this. So
we're bound by this as the citizens of Blue Lake are, as a city council. We're bound to the state to pass this act and this resolution. So we don't really have a choice. It's a hoop we have to go through. What we're doing is we are making some changes to it so it does fit our city more and gives directions to further councils that we want lease to be in there. Definitely.
So Barbara has her hand.
Thank you for your comments, Lisa. I see another hand, Barbara Lane.
Hi, my question is, will the public be able to see the revised resolution?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, this is all a matter of public record. This draft is on our website and the final will be also.
Okay, it'll be on the website. And so that's the only place it'll be available, is on the website?
No, you can always get a hard copy of it from City Hall.
So how will the public know when it's available? I mean, you're talking about, revising it and having a meeting among the council, that doesn't sound like it'll be public. So I don't understand.
Oh. No, it's a public meeting. It'll be brought back to the city council in a public meeting, and that will be noticed just like the rest of our meetings. And then the information will be posted on the website. And then you can also get copies of it at City Hall if you want like a paper copy of it for any of the materials on the website.
Okay, it just sounded like it was going to be a quick meeting that was going to be just the council and not noticed and not public. So thank you.
Well, it may be a quick meeting, but it would include all of you as well.
Thank you.
We will not be doing anything against the Brown Act in the city of Blue Lake. There will be a 72-hour notice of the meeting. Is there any other, thank you for your comment, Barbara. Are there any other questions or comments from the public?
I have a question. Is the notice of the notice of availability of surplus land that's also here in the packet, is that part of this resolution, or what, are you voting on that, or is that just an example of what's going to be happening after the resolution is passed? I'm not clear what that document is.
Section 3 on this resolution states that the city council hereby authorizes the city manager to send written notices of availability of the property for sale or lease and to any beneficially interested person or entity, and to otherwise follow the procedures of the Surplus Land Act. And so after a resolution, it's after it's approved, not tonight, it would then after it's actually approved, then the city manager would send the notices out, and then there's a whole procedure of receiving them, and this was something that Mandy talked about earlier. So she would go through the process of receiving them. There's probably some legal review that goes into it, and then it's brought back to the city council in a public meeting to review the proposals or letters that come in at that time. And again, the city is not obligated or bound to accept any of them.
So this the notice of availability of surplus land here in the agenda packet is something that's part that will happen later on after the resolution has been approved and passed. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so you're having a special meeting on Friday to consider the revised language by the attorney?
Well, we haven't decided that yet. It looks like that's the direction that we're going in, but we're not clear yet in terms of whether we can meet and that kind of thing. But it looks like the direction of the council may be that we're going to have a special meeting, noticed 72 hours as is per the Brown Act, to have a meeting open to the public to look at the final resolution and make sure that it looks the way we want it to look.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we haven't made a motion to that effect yet. Thank you for your comment. Barbara, did you have another comment? Your hand is still up.
I don't know how to take it down.
Oh, that's okay. Sometimes it'll go down after a few minutes. Okay, if there are no other comments, and thank you, public, for joining us tonight. It's back to the council for a motion on how to direct our staff on this item and what we want to do, and in terms of meetings, if that's how we plan to go, because some of us are, workers, and some of us are retired.
So I think we already agreed that we get the revisions back, or have the attorney review it and make sure that it's acceptable, and then bring it back to a public meeting with council and public, and then decide on adopting the resolution.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then.
And I'm sure we can have this, they probably can review it in the morning, because I think your changes are pretty straightforward. And I think they can encapsulate it so that it does meet the conditions of the act. And
okay, hopefully it will be. So do we want to choose a night, or do we want to look at calendars? Friday night is before Halloween.
Well, I'm leaving Friday after work. I can't be here, but wow, I could call in.
I can call in, but I can't be here in person on Friday.
Yeah.
and next week would be fine too.
Okay.
Oh, all right, well then next week.
Monday we have the Public Safety Commission first Monday, so.
November,
I know.
second Tuesday, opening, good anything that day. Election day for Virginia.
They can do Tuesday.
Tuesday, would you like a 6:30 again? Tuesday, November 2nd? Looks good? Okay with you, Elaine?
Yeah, I might still call in, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
it should be quick, so I mean, it'll be fine.
Okay,
That's November 2nd?
yeah. So you'll
Same
have to,
time, 6:30?
yeah, 6:30. It'll be quick. Okay, so we need a motion to direct staff to bring our amended resolution to the city attorney and to come back at a special meeting on November 2nd, Tuesday at 6:30.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. Second. Thank you, Summer. So moved by Chris, seconded Karen, seconded by Summer Doherty to bring our resolution to the city attorney and have a completed copy back to us, and that a special meeting be set for 6:30 on November 2nd, Tuesday at 6:30. Is there any further discussion from council on the motion? Is there any input from public on the motion? Seeing no one, coming back to the council, roll call vote, city clerk.
Yes. Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Hogan,
Yes.
Councilmember Curran,
Yes.
Councilmember McCready.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, I still do not see our Mad River Alliance people. I'm keeping that on the back burner there as we move forward. Do you see?
Questions?
Lisa, did you have a question?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh, I was just wondering about a map with the parcels on it, but I think I found that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, great. Okay, item 10, we are now on. Humboldt County Sheriff's Department contract approval, discussion and action. Hey, I was kind of excited. We're gonna save some money, but I guess that's, the other hand of it is that we're not having the coverage that we want.
Okay, so what was the
Next
justification for the value?
Oh, yeah, so the costs are associated with a full-time benefited deputy 2 position. So basically, we're paying for deputy service based upon that level of qualification. And we do have access to 24/7 coverage. We are getting randomized patrols. They have been targeting our patrols based upon the statistics that show when our highest rates of calls for service are and incidents. So it's been kind of interesting. We have been seeing quite a bit of sheriff drive-through at different times, which has been interesting to kind of see. And I hadn't really looked at that model before, so
That was neat.
yeah. So it's they're kind of tailoring patrols.
Can we summarize it? I'm sorry, my voice is gonna be like dominated in this, but we could summarize those specific numbers. Let me find it. Sheriff Patrol, is it the trends? Okay, right? The trends. So the sheriff's office sent over a PDF file that talked about the trends, where we see the most number of calls by service time range. And so predominantly we were seeing the most calls within the city limits. Is it included around the city too?
It does,
Or
yeah.
the surrounding areas. So within the city limits of Blue Lake and surrounding areas, we have the dominant call time is between 10 a.m. and 12 noon, or 12 p.m. And there were 127 calls. And this is between March and August of 2021. Okay, so then the second highest number of calls during the time range was between 2 and 4 p.m. and then 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. So basically between 8 in the morning till noon, and then actually 8 till they put this in a weird range. Sorry. So the dominant call, predominantly we received most of the calls between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. during the day. And then at night, the calls for assistance drastically reduced. Thought that was really interesting.
Well, that's interesting.
In the
that-
very middle of the day. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's, if a person wakes up and finds that their truck has been broken
Right.
into at
Okay.
8, they found out at 8 a.m. It could have happened at 4 a.m. It could have happened
Right.
at 6 a.m. So I like those stats, but I'm afraid that when it comes to patrolling, I think what's happening, at least from what I'm hearing from people, is it's happening early in the morning, like somewhere 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or
Yeah.
something like
So
that.
the calls, when the calls happen, aren't representative of when the crime is happening.
That's-
Really, it's
And
like-
they take that into consideration, so they'll, because you get a call for service, say for a report of petty theft, they take into consideration the time that the actual incident actually happened versus the time that just the call came in. So they'll move those trends around to, if you get a DV call, that's obviously at a specific time, but petty theft and those things, those do get adjusted for, more of like what a response time would look like versus a response to a call in that you discussed, just discovered it.
Okay, so then they go on to say that the calls for service by day of the week, and they get the most calls for service on Mondays, and then the next in line is Tuesday, Saturday, then Sunday, and then Wednesday, Friday, and Thursday are less by significant. So by like 20 less calls on Wednesday, Friday, and Thursday, but on Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, they get anywhere from 50 to 60 calls. So that was kind of the average that they were getting, not across those between March and August. So
Not a day.
not each day. So yeah. And for that time period, though, the Sheriff's Department received 1,018 calls for incidents in Blue Lake and the surrounding areas between March and August of this year. So it was a great little stat. I don't know if this is something where we can post it somewhere as part of this packet just for people to view. And yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Maybe we were thinking about starting a little page for public safety too.
Oh, okay.
So we could put the sheriff call logs, because we also get the call logs.
Right.
Like every few weeks we get those, so we
put
could
them on
maybe
there. Okay.
start building a little bit of a public safety page
Mhm.
where they have more information that people can look at.
Are you familiar with web design?
No, but I know people who are.
I can, yeah, I was just gonna
Well,
say maybe
Emily
Ben would like to.
is
Oh,
really good at
she?
WordPress, yeah.
Okay.
She's been able to go out and create some new pages for us. and
Good.
stuff too, so I was like, oh, good.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
any other questions or comments about our sheriff?
So no changes to the
Contract?
or no changes to the language since we last saw it?
No,
Just the explanation.
we'll still have, the attorneys will do a final review, but I think the clarifying question last time was what it was based upon.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the question I got was, why has it been reduced by almost half?
Yeah. Well,
And did we budget in this year's budget? Were we going with the previous?
Yeah,
estimate
we
for the
did,
previous?
yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have to make some modifications to the budget.
Yeah.
But we'd also like to, spend a little time thinking about some other ways that
Right.
some of that funding could be spent.
Right.
Because we do receive, some COPS funding that is for community policing. We've been getting a little bit more traction with the community surveillance program. I think, we're looking at some options for even some community patrols. There's lots of communities that hire private security firms just to do, community, surveillance, basically.
there's the group locally, is it SVT? I want to say they cruise through our county parking lot nightly.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I see them out there.
Yeah, there's,
Saw a scope car in Blue Lake.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Every
so
Every once in a while during the day.
They come through, several times a week, they're, and that's another program that could completely use a little bit of, effort, and that could be something. I think the private security stuff is kind of interesting, and looking how other neighborhoods have been successful with that. They're not armed at all, but they just, they drive around like, hey, what's going on, keep on
Right.
going. Or
A deterrent. as
They are a
essentially.
deterrent, yeah, so.
Yeah.
So public safety is looking at some options right now, so that would be something we bring back to council. There could be
an opportunity to reallocate some funding, but there definitely will be a savings to the general fund.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council before I open up to the public? Okay, is there any public comments or questions concerning item 10, our Humboldt County Sheriff's Department contract? Seeing none, I'm going to come back to council for a vote.
I motion we approve the sheriff's contract.
I second that motion.
So I guess we have to approve and direct the city manager to execute the final contract with the Humboldt County Sheriff. Is that your motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
So moved as per city manager recommendation. Second.
And that was a second for you, Ben. Okay, it's been moved by Summer Doherty, seconded by Ben McCrease, to direct the city manager to execute the final contract with the Humboldt County Sheriff. Is there any further discussion from council? Any further discussion from public? And it looks like back to council for the vote. You know, now that we're meeting in person, do we have to have roll call? I just thought of that.
You know,
I don't think we do now, because we did that when we were on Zoom, but we don't have to now.
we might want to just do it, just.
Okay.
Consistent for now.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
mid-meeting.
just occurred to me. Have you been thinking that already?
Yeah, but
You
I
should
think
have mentioned
mid-meeting, we don't need to change it.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a Zoom thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been doing so much Zoom with
Right.
this and HCOG, and it's just the protocol now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, forgive me for that. Okay, go ahead then with a roll call vote, Mandy.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Hogan. Yes. Councilmember Curran,
Yes.
Councilmember McCready.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are on council correspondence.
We did not receive anything. I didn't know if council had received anything that they wanted to report on. Sometimes you guys get stuff that comes in and.
Yep. No. All right, no council correspondence. Consent agenda, item 12. Is there anyone who would like to pull the consent agenda items A or B? I'm gonna, since I wasn't here, I'd like to pull 12A just so that I can abstain,
Why would you want to abstain?
because I wasn't here.
It doesn't actually matter.
Oh, all right. But then I can't really approve the consent agenda.
You totally can.
Well, okay, then I could just abstain from it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think we've had this conversation before with
I
Eureka,
know.
and it doesn't actually matter.
It's really a weird one, but
It is.
April always tells us that you can vote on the minutes even if you weren't there.
Yeah,
I
And
know,
it's
I know.
counterintuitive, but.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that is. Yeah.
That's the deal.
All right. If we don't want to, then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
No second. Motion by Summer Doherty, second by Elaine Hogan to approve the consent agenda.
And I think you can just abstain. If you want.
Yeah, I can do a roll call.
Yeah. Any further discussion from council? Any discussion from public? Back to council for the roll call vote.
Mayor Jones.
Abstain. But see, I didn't abstain from the warrants. That's the only problem. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Doherty.
Yes.
Councilmember Hogan. Yes. Councilmember Curran,
Yes.
Councilmember McCready.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. All right, item 13, reports of council and staff. We're gonna go around the room. Summer, would you like to be first?
I was looking at it like, sure. So we had our Redwood Region Economic Development Commission meeting last night and had an interesting presentation on AB 857, which is the California Public Banking Law. And it's there was a point where we weren't sure as REDAC board members if we could, and this is focused around money related to cannabis sales. And so we weren't sure if we could engage because we had quite a bit of federal funding. And so we needed to keep kind of a separation. But it was really an interesting presentation and just learning about the banking law. There's a couple different laws that are, or bills that have gone through. And this one really just provides for some public ownership and control around bank money and banking. So you can, it gives you kind of that framework to develop a public bank. But it's kind of we found that there's really not a large enough, I don't know, there was something like it doesn't really fit us here for some reason, or not too sure, but it was an interesting presentation about how to better, it's a non-consumer bank basically. And it does allow for some easier ways to help fund infrastructure and locally, and yeah.
Did they talk about the post office having banking services? That's been,
No.
that's been something that
It was just trying to figure out who could be the entity that became the bank. Like there are fire districts, there are council, or there are cities, there's like other types of districts that can be the bank, but it's a very complicated process. But it just really trying to open those doors to find a means for funneling cannabis money through in a non-federal manner, so that it can be, you know, for those who want to utilize it in that manner. So yeah, it was an interesting presentation.
What was the
AB 857, and that's one of them. There's actually another one as well that I didn't write the number down, but I can send you. I don't think we had a presentation actually. We just talked about it.
Oh, I'm just gonna summarize it.
Okay. Yeah. And Public Safety Commission. So those guys are on top of it, man. They are just like going for the surveillance. Stephanie's doing the morning walking, observe and report, looking into other options for patrols or means to use the excess money from the sheriff's contract. And just really, I'm really impressed with that commission and how engaged they are and active. So they're doing a great job of just keeping up on things. And then just for informational purposes, if you're interested in kind of like the sea level rise issues along Caltrans highway corridor, they're doing a webinar tomorrow night. And there's been a few places where it's been posted, but you can attend and view. And they're doing basically a public workshop to talk about their planning and what's going on. I've seen it posted on Facebook. I had an invite, but I can also share registration if anybody wants it. Tomorrow at 6 or 6:30. I think it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Are they going to talk about the upgrades that are happening along there in conjunction with the local drive? I'm assuming
I
they're
think
all being.
yeah, like ties into how the improvements are being, how sea level rise is being addressed through those improvements and how to move forward. So I think that was the
Everyone's
main.
so curious about what's actually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's just informational. Let's see.
Okay, I attended an HCOG, Humboldt County Association of Governments meeting last Thursday. And it was held by Zoom. And before you have your Zoom meeting, you have to pass AB 361, which extends your ability to have a Zoom meeting because it sunsetted on September 30th. So we did that because a lot of our members of HCOG really don't like to drive to Eureka, especially now it's getting darker. So looks like we may continue to do things by Zoom, at least with HCOG. We had a pretty extensive report from Caltrans on the Eureka Arcata 101 project. They've had to re-advertise and repackage the project because none of the bids that they got were acceptable. There is some drilling that's taking place right now. They're looking at a completion with the new plan at the February-March 2022 meeting. They're calling this an undercrossing. They don't call it an overcrossing. It's an undercrossing because the highway is going underneath it. That's how that.
that works. And they will need time extension because their costs may increase, but they're thinking it might not. And their time limit was supposed to end on, it was expiring on May 22nd, so they're going to have to increase their time limit on that. And then other than that, we had a letter of support for Eureka Bike Plan. And we had, this was our big reading here of the draft of it's called Vroom, which I really love because it's variety and rural options of mobility. There's some really great maps in here too. The reason it's so big is because they put every single public comment that came in is in here. So we approved this, the Regional Transportation Plan. It's a 20-year plan. Anybody wants to look at some nighttime reading, there you go. And let's see, I think that was.
Are you offering for somebody to like borrow that from you?
Sure, you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
It ties into a current project we're working on.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah. So, and that was the first night that we met the new mayor of Arcata, Mayor Atkins Salazar, who, by the way, went through Blue Lake Elementary School from K through 8th grade, Arcata High graduate, Humboldt State graduate, local girl is now the mayor of Arcata.
Did the TAC get a report?
Of what?
The TAC, did you get a TAC advisory report?
Are you on that?
No, Mike Foggett represents us.
Oh,
But the
okay.
TAC had recommended our truck route Greenwood project for funding for $1.6 million. So it's supposed to be moving up through the chain and go to the CPC for approval.
Yes,
Which is a big one.
well, let me double check on that. I'm pretty sure it did.
Okay.
I think it was under the consent.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was
Great.
under the consent. Yeah, the overall work program and budget amendment. I think it's in there. Yeah. Okay, I'll double check on that. That's all I have. Okay, Elaine, did you attend the meeting?
Humboldt Waste Management Authority, HWMA, let's see, I should have brought the full agenda, but we, just got done with the second phase of a waste characterization study that looked at, what's actually in the trash in all of the jurisdictions that are part of HWMA. And so we got some good statistics for Blue Lake in terms of what percentage is organic. And because we're dealing with SB 1383, which is going to mandate composting of organics and even getting out donatable food out of the waste stream before it becomes trash, they also characterized what portion of the organic waste they thought would have been donatable or consumable at the time of it going in the trash. So we had some really interesting statistics. I apologize for not bringing them. I'll bring them next meeting. And the good news is that there is a lot of stuff in the trash that has a market and has a feasible, like, recoverability is, I think, the term that they use. So that's good news. It's just about creating a system to get all that stuff and capitalize on it. So that was interesting. And then we're still in the search for an executive director, but really nearing the final stages. We did have one candidate come out and visit us and did a whole tour of the transfer station and of the landfill. And so, yeah, we are moving closer and hope to have someone in place, I think by the end of the year. So, exciting, but no official announcements yet. And that's it.
Thank you. Chris, did you attend any meetings?
I didn't yet. Our CEA will meet Thursday, and then economic development's picking up again. Tomorrow we have a downtown walk with some of the downtown business owners to vision. And,
Yeah, I saw that. That's meeting at Town Square at 5:30 tomorrow. Yeah, okay.
And yeah, so that'll be good to start that up again with Emily.
Okay, thank you. Ben, did you attend any meetings?
Nope, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're moving on then to future agenda items. Oh, staff report. And thank you for your written staff report, Mandy. I really appreciate it. I like the format of it. Was the format good for everyone? Yeah. Yeah,
I
that was
figured,
good.
you know, it's been so long since I did, I'm like, is this taking longer or should we change? Because I remember Bobby wanted, he liked something completely different, so, yeah, I'm happy to change it anyway. I'm sure I'd missed some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe if we could add a like part at the end of just like not a description, but just projects that are ongoing, but not.
There was a spreadsheet you gave us one time.
Yeah.
I printed
Yeah.
out like a one-page,
Right.
lines and dates and
With all the-
maybe dollar
okay.
amounts
Yeah.
and funding agency or something.
Okay,
It was really
I'll go back through
Yeah, that
and
one.
see. Yeah, I remember we went
Okay.
round and round about different ways to present information and
Yeah.
just like what.
No, the narrative's still great, but yeah, just that project, it was like a
Like this,
Oh, so it
project
was like a
tracker.
tracking sheet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a
Okay,
project
I'll go back
tracker,
and see, I'm sure.
with timelines and, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions or comments for staff concerning the staff report? Pretty straightforward. Okay. All right, still no appearance from our Mad River Alliance Powers Creek Restoration Project folks.
I apologize, I
Natalie?
don't, it's verified they would be on.
Yes, Lynn?
I heard from Keith Barnard, who was prepared to present tonight. He was not able to get on the call. He tried until 7:40, he said, and he wasn't able to do it. And then I had another friend who just texted me, and she's been trying to get on all evening. She couldn't get on, and the phone link's not up either. So there could be others as well, but Keith specifically said he wasn't able. He tried to be on, so I wanted you to know that he wasn't just forgetting. He made many attempts, just to let you know.
Oh, thank you for letting us know. Yeah, that's a shame. The other option is he could have come down here with his mask on.
Yeah. But probably updating the link and the phone number on the page, but it's the same one every
I
time.
know,
Yeah.
I put a new one on each time.
Oh, you
I
do?
redo
Okay.
it, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, several people couldn't get on the call. Barbara couldn't get on and Laura couldn't get on. But also I have one more comment, because I wasn't able to make public comment because I couldn't hear you at the time. And I just had a question for the council about the redistricting process. I know other councils have been discussing redistricting, and I did want to know if Blue Lake is going to be discussing it or how it's going to be handled in town.
Yeah, so we actually have a meeting tomorrow. I have a staff meeting with the county to talk about it, to be able to bring it back to council. We reached out kind of early on to see like what was happening, where would we be brought in, when would we be consulted, and Summer, I don't know if you've been part of that at all at the county. It seems like it's moving, like it's almost like jumped over everybody, so.
They're on the second draft.
Yeah, they got a hold of us, said, oh yeah, we really want to present to council, but we saw your meetings actually tonight. We probably can't get on the agenda now. So I reached out to you like weeks ago about this. So I have Mike Wilson set up a meeting for staff tomorrow to at least get some information to be able, and I said, well, what I'll do is I'll meet with them tomorrow, and then I'll send you guys separately whatever information we get, so you have some background, and then invite them to, I guess, in November to be on, if it makes sense, or maybe if you want a special meeting or something to address it, but it's.
So I do understand that there is a link to a mapping tool that you can utilize to provide your own feedback to where you think the lines should be drawn.
And I've heard it's been problematic, people are having a lot of difficulty with the link and trying to figure it all out. I tried to go on at one point and it was like map after map, but you couldn't really get into each one separately. They were all like linked together, so.
Yeah.
But I should have more information tomorrow, and then I can even put something out to the community as an update, or, provide me information on where you can provide comment, or at least what the impacts are. I think for me, it's more like, I don't know what the impacts are of the redistricting, if it's just a different representative, or does the redistricting
do anything for us for, you know, on the advocacy level or the demographic level, if we're, you know, linked in the same district, I'm not really sure what happens at that point.
I know there's at least one member of the committee, Barbara Russell, who's in the Glendale district, and she would like to see that area. And the Glendale people have mentioned this a lot. They would like to be more connected with us when it comes to the redistricting. And I think Philbrook does too. So, but I don't know how that's going to work out either. So
they want to be connected with
the
third district.
Well, yeah, that's the problem is how because it goes by population. It's not by land, you know. So
Yeah, there's some language about being contiguous to the next district, and so there, I mean, but some of the proposals I saw were really strange.
Right.
And so it was almost like, well, we have to jog down here and pick up because we needed, you know, 300 more people. So we picked up a real separate, I think Ferndale was getting moved around. And so like, all of a sudden it's like, why is Ferndale connected with maybe Blue Lake, I think.
No way.
It might have been just because they have a smaller population base, and so they're having to jog around. It was really bizarre.
well, that's how we got into the third district. Is because the fifth district was so large. There's so many people in McKinleyville now. We were always in the fifth district for years and years and years, and then about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years it might be now, that they came to our town, and we had a town meeting. I don't know if any of you were at it, but it was at the Grange, and they presented the fact that the third district, which has been shrinking, needed to pick up about 1,500 people. So if they went along West End Road and then grabbed Blue Lake into the third, that would make it more even. So that's how we ended up in the third district. We made a change. Anyway, good question. Thank you for that comment, Lena. We'll get maybe an update on that as we learn more about it. Anyone else that didn't have a chance to call in during the public meeting time, the public hearing time? Seeing no one, okay, we'll come back to our item 4, which is our closed session.
Like future agenda items.
Oh, I'm sorry, future agenda items. Yeah, future agenda items. Okay. Future agenda items.
So I was just looking at our minutes from last time, and we're crossing off a couple things and adding a discussion about the county redistricting and a project tracking.
We'll bring back the Power Street update.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I wonder when we have presenters that are going to be attending, can we specifically email them the agenda and a link?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe this would be a good time to look at our calendars for November and December, because the 4th Thursday in November is the 23rd, which is 2 days before Thanksgiving. I mean, that used to be a problem for me because I would always go somewhere when I was teaching, but now I don't go anywhere. So it's not a problem, but is it at anybody else's, is it a problem for anyone else?
I'll be out of the country.
Okay. So there you go. And then, you know, to add to the confusion, the 4th, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th Tuesday in December is the 28th. So sometimes what we've done is we have
just shift them to the second.
Shifted it to the, well, we've done that, or we have combined the two to have like an early December meeting instead of having a meeting November and December.
So if we have a special meeting next week and then do a meeting the second Tuesday of December, or do you think there needs to be an additional one in November?
Or the first, I don't know, December 7th is the first Tuesday, December 14th is the second Tuesday.
I think you could make those adjustments, and then if something came up, we could find out who. I don't know if there's really anything. I'm trying to think what my board is that's really critical to be addressed. We've kind of gotten some of the big ones done, the different contracts.
Will you be back by the 7th?
If we do it the second Tuesday, which is our placeholder.
Yeah,
Eighth,
we
right?
used to have meetings the second and
Yeah.
fourth Tuesday, so.
And that makes sure it doesn't conflict with anybody else's board meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
So what's the date?
So it looks like December 14th. So it looks like we're going to have a special meeting on November 2nd at 6:30. And then due to the Thanksgiving holiday, we're then going to have our next meeting on December 14th, Tuesday at 6:30. And that would forego a meeting of December. So there wouldn't be one near Christmas.
Okay, so November 2nd and December 14th.
Yeah,
And so that cancels the regular ones in November and December.
right. That cancels out the 23rd in November and the 28th in December.
Okay.
Okay, and then if we need a special meeting, we can always call that with our 72-hour notice.
And on our future agendas, let's just put that placeholder on there, the Powers Creek update placeholder, and leave it there, because if there's nothing to discuss, then there's nothing, but if there is, let's just keep it on there.
Yeah. Any other future agenda items before we move on? Anything from public? Back to council.
Oh, well, we need the Mad River.
Oh, yeah, the Mad River
Yeah.
Alliance
Yeah, that will get pushed to,
presentation, yeah.
gosh, that pushes them to December.
Yeah, that does. Is that a problem?
I don't think so. I mean, they're still in like the permitting stuff and environmental side of things. So, and that's a fairly large ATE that they're looking at. So
Okay.
I don't think it's like, I don't think there's anything that would be like design specific that you might have concerns with that would affect their progress. So,
Were they gonna have a PowerPoint?
you know, I'm really not sure.
Because, I mean, if we're having this problem with the internet, we may be able to accommodate him here, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I can let them know. I wasn't really sure how you guys wanted to do the meeting too. So, if you guys feel comfortable with that, with people coming in, I can see if they're comfortable with that too.
Yeah, as long as there's
It'd
not.
be
a
good to
noise.
see, a map of the project, and
Yeah.
just a general idea of where things are.
Right,
And
absolutely.
maybe even preliminary design, so it can.
Yeah, and they should, and that's what we had talked about, that we wanted to see the design, that you guys needed an opportunity to say, yeah, it's looking good, or no, we've got concerns, and we haven't got to that point, so.
Maybe he could have some information for our packet rather than just depending on multimedia. Okay, any other future agenda items? All right, so we are now on item 4, moved down, the closed session. Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code 54957, Title City Manager. We need a motion to go into closed session.
A motion to go into closed session,
Second.
and so this ends our meeting.
There's a motion by Summer Doherty, seconded by Chris Curran, to go into closed session. Is there any further discussion from council? Anything from public? Back to council for the vote.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Doherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Hogan,
Yes.
Councilmember Curran,
Yes.
Councilmember McCready.
Yes.
We are now in closed session. Looking for that money from HCOG, and I'm not finding it.